Well, as you may have noticed, there are a couple of inherent problems when in user functionality when I run this app. Let's go ahead and run this and see if we can identify those. First of all, when it starts, it just says label, which doesn't look very good. Also, the view picker starts at -100, which is not a common temp that we see a lot. It's nice to have it there if I need to convert it, but to start there might not be the best place. So let's see if we can go about fixing those issues. So what we need to do if we're going to control our picker, we need to create an outlet to it. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to control drag and I'll call it Celsius picker. And it's a UI picker view. Hit connect. I've already created an outlet to my label because I changed the text, so I don't need that. So let's look at the documentation about a UI picker view, Shift Command 0, and see if there's anything there that might be interesting. Let's do UI picker view. And if I look through here, I see something called select row. And select row and component might be what we want. So let's see if we can go ahead and implement that functionality. So in my view did load, I'm going to put let default picker row, which means which row I start with. Well, I want that to be halfway through my row. So I could put, since I know there's 200 rows, I could put 100 because that's halfway through. But if for some reason I ever change the amount of values in my picker, then 100 won't be right. So I actually am going to do it as a calculation. So I can do, let me see if I can go to Celsius picker. I can do number of rows in component, and it tells me which component. Well, components are 0 indexed. So if I had 3 components, it would be 0, 1, or 2. Since I only have one component, I want the first one, which is the 0th component. And I want to divide it by 2. So it's the number of rows in the first component divided by 2. So it should be 200 divided by 2. Okay? And that'll give me half the number of rows. So then all I want it to do is I want it to make my default row this default picker row. So I can do Celsius picker. Remember we did select row, which seemed to be the right method. And the row is going to be default picker row. In component, well, 0. And then animated, false. We just want it to, we don't want to do any animation. We just want to see it show up. Okay, well, let's go ahead and run that. See what that looks like. Remember, before it started out on -100. Let's see what it starts at now. And it starts at 0, which is much better. That's a much more reasonable place to start. But we notice that our label still is not updated. It only updates after we select a row. So until we select something, it doesn't get converted. So what we could do is we could start by making the label 32. We could change it to 32. Because it starts at 0, it's going to be 32. But if our values ever changes, that wouldn't be correct. Well, the good news is there's an easier way to do it. We have the did select row. We can actually implement that in our view did load. So we can just do picker view, did select row. So I'll call, let's see, the UI picker view is Celsius picker. Did select row. Which row do we select? Well, we'll say the default pick a row, and in component 0. So this calls that did select row method on the Celsius picker, the one here, and it's going to have it selected this row, which is the one the middle one, in our first component. So now, if we run that, instead of saying label, it should automatically update to 32 degrees. which it does, which is perfect. So now it says 32, it doesn't say label, and it's much easier to navigate within that. So we've really improved this from a user perspective. But what happens if I select the temperature and then restart the app? Or what happens if I quit the app completely and bring it back? What happens to the default temperature? And we're going to investigate a way to save that temperature state.